Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Monday morning, the 2nd of December. So we're going to talk about the JonBenet Ramsey case today. But first, a couple of announcements. Episode 2 of Cold Case Christmas 2024 will come out tonight, 6 PM my time, and then whatever that is in your local time, over on my other channel, Michelle Walks. If you missed episode 1, it was the bizarre disappearance of Hannah Up, who disappeared from the US Virgin Islands. Tonight, we're going down under to New Zealand. So if you're interested in cold cases, then get over there, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and look out for episode 2. Secondly, also tonight my time, but 1:30 PM Eastern, Sarah Boone is being sentenced today. So I'm going to be live later on. So I'm going to be live from maybe 6:15. So it's busy. You could watch Cold Case Christmas and then hop straight on back to this channel to watch Sarah Boone's sentencing. That's just an option for you. Okay, so JonBenet Ramsey. Not talked about JonBenet for a while. I did a members live about her case 2 years ago now, if you can believe that. I did 2 or 3 live streams when that suspect Gary Oliva was all up in the news. His DNA didn't match the crime scene, so he's never been charged. Same with other suspects, John Mark Carr. I think John Mark Carr is a very possible suspect, given that he knew things about the case that only the killer would know, or someone very close to the case would know. But his DNA didn't match either. Anyway, JonBenet's case is back in the news because of the new Netflix series. This is it. Cold Case, Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey? It's a 3-part series. It's very good. I really enjoyed it. It's still #1 in TV programmes for me. It's pretty good. It sets the scene for what we're going to talk about in this video. That is why I believe the Ramseys did not kill JonBenet. I just don't see it. I've never seen it. So we're going to talk about that. Let's go. Let's start with just a little bit of background for those not familiar with JonBenet's case. She was born on August the 6th, 1990, to John and Patsy. John had a family previously. He was divorced, and he had 3 kids from a previous marriage who were now grown. One, unfortunately, died in a vehicle accident, but John found love again and he married Patsy. They had Burke, who was 9 at the time of JonBenet's death, and JonBenet was 6. They were originally from Atlanta in Georgia, but John's work took him to Colorado. So they set up home in Boulder, and they didn't plan to stay there forever. It was just kind of like a stopgap to do with John's work. They always intended to go back to Georgia. Now, John was very wealthy. He was the president of a company called Access Graphics, which was a computer software company. And it was set up at the time when computers were the biggest thing. His company hit the market at the right time, and it made him an awful lot of money. Now, Patsy was a very controversial figure. She still is, even though she's no longer with us. She died of cancer, so she never found out, sadly, who killed JonBenet. But I do hope that John does. John's still with us. He's still campaigning for new DNA analysis to be done. He wants IgG, investigative genetic genealogy, to be done on the DNA that was found at the crime scene. There was unknown male DNA. Doesn't match anything in CODIS, in JonBenet's underwear, but also under her fingernails. So, yeah, Patsy's controversial because she used to dress JonBenet up in certainly costumes that you wouldn't expect a 6-year-old to be wearing. But it was part of the pageant scene. Patsy was a previous beauty pageant contestant, and JonBenet enjoyed it. She liked performing, she liked being on stage, And all of the videos that you see of JonBenet, what you don't realise is that she's in a room, like mainly with just like other parents. It was just like a pageant scene, and they did like little competitions. JonBenet loved it. She loved dressing up. It's not something I would personally want my daughter to do, but I guess we live in different times now. But the pageant scene is still a thing, so I don't know. There's that. Everyone to themselves, I guess. The way that Patsy lived her life through JonBenet was very suspicious to a lot of people. The other controversial thing was the ransom note. So if you want to pause the video and read the typed out version of the ransom note, please do. It was the morning of the 26th of December 1996. So the day after Christmas. The Ramseys had spent some time Christmas Day with family friends. They'd been to their place for dinner. They got home and JonBenet went straight to bed. She was really tired. 5 a.m. or something like that, Patsy gets up, comes down the stairs, and there's a piece of paper on the stairs. So she picks it up, and lo and behold, it's a ransom note. So she panics and she calls 911. Now, this 911 call has been analysed to within an inch of its life, as has the ransom note. The ransom note, people just think Patsy wrote it because it's unusual. The ransom note includes details about a bonus that John had recently received from work. So people thought, well, how on earth would somebody, just a stranger, coming in and murdering JonBenet, how would they know about this bonus? But it was in the public domain. And also, if somebody's been in there snooping, then they could easily have got their hands on information about that bonus. Then loads of people have said that the ransom note is Patsy's handwriting. Now, look, I'm not a great fan of handwriting analysis. I'm just not, because somebody can just use the non-dominant hand and their writing would look so different. So I don't rely on handwriting analysis, but numerous handwriting experts have said that this does not match Patsy's handwriting. So there's that. But leaving a ransom note at all when JonBenet's body was found in the house is bizarro. You've got to admit it's bizarro. So one major theory that still is quite pervasive today is that Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's 9-year-old brother, murdered her, and Patsy found the body and then staged the scene, including the ransom note. Look, when you hear about the details of JonBenet's death, I honestly cannot see anybody in their right mind thinking that a 9-year-old boy could kill a little girl in this way. And I certainly can't see how a mother finding her daughter's dead body could possibly stage the scene. A more recent theory concerning Burke Ramsey was that Patsy believed that Burke had killed her, even though he hadn't, and then she had to stage the scene anyway because it was her belief that Burke had done it. No. Other people have blamed John because he was the one that found JonBenet, which is so bad from the police investigation perspective. What happened was, after the 911 call, police arrived. There was already friends of the Ramseys in the house. They should have all been told to leave, right? If a child has been kidnapped from inside their house, that house is a crime scene. Why you're having people like sitting in there, tramping around, doing their own thing, everyone should have been made to leave. That was a crime scene, including the Ramseys. Anyhow, it wasn't. So people from Boulder PD turn up. Look, I don't necessarily blame them completely because they very rarely had murders. Like, these officers were just not equipped to deal with a murder case. And at the time, they didn't know it was a murder. But even so, they suspected a kidnapping because there's a ransom note. So at the very least, they should have got everyone out, including the Ramseys, to do a thorough and forensic search. But that was not done. They had a quick look round, did Boulder PD. The Ramseys lived in a deceptively large house. From the outside, it looks quite small, but it's not. It's over 4 floors. It's quite big. Some people call it a mansion. It's not that big, but it's a house that has been added onto. It's had like extensions after extensions, so the layout of it is quite quirky. So another reason why people don't believe the intruder theory is that how did the intruder navigate through this unusual house, find JonBenet's bedroom, and then know to take her down to the wine cellar? Well, I think the intruder had been in that house before. I think that intruder possibly was known to the family, but if a complete stranger, I think he'd been in that house before. Anyway, Boulder PD didn't find JonBenet, so they were like, right, okay, we'll wait for the phone to ring. They had the phone wired up so that they could record the call, you know, when this call from the kidnapper was going to come in, and nothing happened. So one of the police officers said to John, why don't you go and look around your house? Well, John went down to the basement because there's lots of kind of little rooms down there, and he thought that the police had searched kind of the upper portion of the house reasonably well. So he went down to the cellar, him and his friend. And he opens the door into the wine cellar, which the police officers didn't do. And lo and behold, there's JonBenet dead on the floor. So this police officer who said that, oh, she saw John coming up the stairs with JonBenet's lifeless body, and she was so scared that she nearly drew a gun on him. Look, there's inexperience and then there's just bizarrity. And Boulder PD did so much to rile the media up about the Ramseys. It's the kind of case that people are going to get riled up about anyway, because this is a little girl who does beauty pageants. And it's a strange case. So it's going to get public attention. But the police were feeding the media with information about the Ramseys and stirred them up into a frenzy. The Ramseys were probably the most hated people in America throughout 1997. And that hatred still continues today, even though we know so much more now about the crime scene. Well, look, we've known about the crime scene since the early days. They released the autopsy report. But because there was so much angst and so much antagonism about the Ramseys, people just couldn't see the wood for the trees. So here's the reason why, in my opinion, there is no way the Ramseys did this. And it's all about JonBenet's autopsy. So this is her autopsy report. Wrapped around the neck with a double knot in the midline of the posterior neck is a length of white cord similar to that described as being tied around the right wrist. So she had a cord around her right wrist, and then she had this cord fashioned into a garrote. So the mark places on the neck, and then the posterior knot is left intact. Extending from the knot on the posterior aspect of the neck are 2 tails of the knot, one measuring 4 inches, with the end tied in multiple loops around a length of a round tan brown wooden stick, which measures 4.5 inches in length. This wooden stick is irregularly broken at both ends, and there are several colours of paint and apparent glistening varnish on the surface. This is cord that was found in the Ramseys' house, and the broken up handle of a paintbrush, which comes from Patsy's arts and crafts set. So again, people say, look, these were things that were in the house. If a kidnapper had come in and ended up murdering JonBenet, they bring their own stuff. No. I think the ransom note was left first. I think the intruder was familiar with that house, as I said previously. I think the original intention was to kidnap JonBenet, and that's why the ransom note was written and left. Then JonBenet was got from her bed. Was she tased with a stun gun? Possibly, I don't know. There are marks, but we don't know for sure. And then I think that the kidnapper intended to kidnap JonBenet as a plaything. Whether he would return her later or whether he was going to murder her later, I don't know. I'd probably murder her later, I would think. But I truly believe that the intention was to take JonBenet down to the cellar so that they could slip out. This window that had been broken for months in the cellar. That's how the intruder got in. There was a suitcase under the window, which was like a little step, which hadn't been there previously. So the intruder had set it all up. And I think the intruder got excited at the prospect and thought, well, everyone's asleep. It was the thrill of it all, and the perversion overtook him right there. So therefore, he used items that were there already. One of his perversions was the power of bringing someone out of unconsciousness, like into and out of unconsciousness. It's a thrill for a lot of people. This is the mind of one very sick puppy. There's no way that a 9-year-old could have done this. No way. And the reason why it's absolutely impossible for Patsy or John to have staged the scene, like JonBenet's already dead, because she had a head wound. So, the theory's been that this head wound was the reason she died, and then Patsy or John or both of them staged this scene with the garrote. No, JonBenet was alive when she was garroted. She was alive, located just below the right ear at the right angle of the mandible. 1.5 inches below the right external auditory canal is an area of rust-coloured abrasion, so that's like a scrape. In the lateral aspect of the left lower eyelid on the inner conjunctival surface is a 1 mm in maximum dimension petechial hemorrhage. Very fine, less than 1 mm petechial hemorrhage present on the skin of the upper eyelids bilaterally as well as on the lateral left cheek. On averting the left upper eyelid, there is much smaller, less than 1 mm petechial hemorrhages located on the conjunctival surface. Possible petechial hemorrhage also seen on the conjunctival surfaces of the right upper and lower eyelids, but livor mortis on this side of the face makes definite identification difficult. There is petechial hemorrhaging. What is that? It's the fine dots. It looks like a viral rash. But if you are strangled and you're struggling to breathe, and it's that struggling motion that pops the little blood vessels in the eyes and in other parts of the body, it's most apparent in the eyes. Makes them look like weird and bloodshot. But there was also petechial hemorrhaging in the internal parts of her body as well. So, in summary, JonBenet was alive when she had this horrible event happen to her. It wasn't a stage scene at all. Impossible that it was a stage scene after the fact. And there's no way that a 9-year-old could do this. I don't believe any woman would do this. I mean, look, there's always the exception, but look, this is a man. And there's the unknown male DNA. I just do not see how people can still believe that the Ramseys murdered their little girl. They loved her. And they've been treated horribly. Horribly. That's what the media does, unfortunately. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would add a poll, but I can't. So I think what I'll do is I'll do a poll in my community section. Answer, what do you think happened to JonBenet Ramsey? See you in the next video. Bye, guys.